In this video you're going to look at how to create tables and relationships in Access, and to do this we're going to look at making a little quiz maths game. And so what we're going to have is, obviously things you're going to need here is Microsoft Access, and we're going to just talk a little bit about the scenario about what we're going to be creating. So each math quiz is going to have 3 different questions, and it's going to be set for users of a specific age. So with that we're also going to need to know the answers so we can actually check to see if they got them correct. We also need to have users that can log in using an ID and a password. And there's going to be different types of users. The standard users, but also admin users that need to be able to go in and create tests, add in the questions, log in, do any other sort of admin tasks, maybe like display summaries as we see fit. Anything else, other people need to be able to log in, test, and only be able to see the tests that are appropriate for their age and complete those tests. And when a test is complete, it should award people points, tell them their answer, give them 1 point for correct answer, 0 for any incorrect, and then total those up. So they're basically going to get a score between 0 and 3. It should also then be saved into the database. What we need to do first is actually look at what data we need and create the tables. Now we need sort of 3 tables to store the information about these. A user table, which holds all the information about the users. Quiz table, which holds information about the different quizzes. Now at the moment, these two aren't sort of linked. We need to actually have a way of storing their results, so the results for the different students. So what we do is we add a results table that will store all their answers and their final score, as well as what quiz it was for and what student. So it's a way of collecting all the information together. Now we're just going to have a look at the different users tables. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what sort of data should be stored here. These are things that you should be making up and investigating for your own benefit. We need obviously a user ID, which is unique, one of a kind. You can't have 2 people with the same user ID, otherwise you're going to get confused. Password, obviously password, fairly obvious. First name, surname, age. The age is a bit different. The age is actually what age the person is, so we can match up what age test to display for. And also, is admin, to see if they're an admin user or not. The quiz, we need a quiz ID, way of uniquely knowing which test this is for. Depending on how it could be, you could end up using dates plus the name of the test on subject. So we obviously need the age that this test is for. Questions and answers. We also need 3 questions and 3 answers. You might have like question 1, answer 1, question 2, answer 2, question 3, answer 3. And finally we need our results table, which has the quiz ID, so it knows which test it's for. The user ID, so you know whose answers these are, so which student it is or user. And the answers, we're going to need 3 of those, or however many of the questions there are. So we need an answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, and also a total. Now these are also going to be needed to be able to be linked up, and these are called relationships. We'll come back to looking at this when we go through the example, but they need to be linked in some way. This is why we have this results table. The idea being is a user can take lots of different quizzes, and each quiz can be taken by lots of different users, but we need a way of uniquely referencing them, linking each set of results to a user and the quiz. So what we can say is a user can take many different results from many different tests, but each test result is for only one user and it's also for only one quiz, so it links the two together. But each quiz can have many test results. So that's one quiz can be used over and over for lots of different users. Okay, so we finished that, and what we're going to go is straight into Access, and I'm just going to create some tables. We're going to start off by creating the user table. It's always a good idea to basically save the table straight away. Go into Design View. Now we're going to modify this. So the first thing we need for a user is a user ID. And if you think, common logins for people, it's not normally numbers, it's normally some form of text. And I'm going to say, let's give people, say, 40 characters that they can use for that. Then we can have a password. Now password, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to let them have as big as they want, but their input mask, we're going to modify that and set it as password. That means that when we type in, it will only show stars. Then we need the first name. So and surname, as well as the age, and something to work out if they're an admin. Now, most of these, the first four can be left as short text. Age, however, we're going to store that as a number, and we want to keep it as an integer, because it can only ever be a whole number. And admin is yes, no, to see if that yes or no, if they are an admin user or not. So I'm going to save that. What we can notice is we've got a little key up here that's the primary key. It means you can only ever have one user with that name. So if I go and add an admin user, and then what I'm going to try and do is add another one, I'm going to try and go to a different row. It's basically telling me that the primary key won't work because it's not going to be individual. I'm just going to call this first user 1. And let's say we're going to make them 12. And we don't leave that blank because they're not an admin. And we're just going to save that. So we've got the first table created. What we're now going to do is create the second table. Once again, save it. We're going to create the quiz table. You can also right click to go into design view for this, and we also have a quiz ID, and for this we might have other details. We need an age, which is also a number. Both of these we're going to leave as integers. And we need our 3 questions. Once again, they have to be unique. Now the questions, we're going to leave those as short text. However, the different answers, we're going to change those to numbers, but also leave them as doubles. Double means we can have, whole numbers, decimal points. Means we get a bit more flexibility with what we're doing. So I'm just going to go through, check those, they're all correct, save it. Quiz ID is our primary key for this one. Create another table, which is going to be the results. Now, there's a few different ways of dealing with this. I'm going to show one way to start with, and setting up the links and the relationships in this table, and you can choose which way you think is appropriate. So we need, obviously, the quiz ID. We also need the user ID, and that one was short text, but it also had a field size of 40. Now we need our answers. So these are the different answers that the user will actually type in, and they were going to be numbers, and we also need to make sure that they are formatted in the same format as the ones that were in the quiz table. It's really important that you actually match these up to the fields so that they are actually of the same type. And we need a total, which is also a number, but we can leave that as integer because we're just getting 0, 1, 2, or 3. So we're just adding up the points. If you had half points, you'd need to change it to a decimal. Now what we need to do is make sure that the user ID and the quiz ID are both parts of the primary key, because we need to make sure, because we can have lots of quizzes, lots of results using the same quiz, and lots of users taking the same, entering their results, but we need to make sure that by having both of these, the user ID and the quiz ID, that the student can only take it into the test once. So it means we can't have, quiz 1, user, a user, quiz 1, user, a user. That won't let that happen. So we've got our tables. We're going to now go into relationship view. If the tables don't show up, you just want to basically right click show all. Now what we want to do is link them. So we're going to drag the quiz ID onto the results, tick the enforce referential integrity, and create. If it's all working properly, you shouldn't get any error messages, and you'll get this nice little diagram. So it's saying a quiz can have many results. A result is for only one quiz. A result can only have one user. A user can have many results. So that's one way of setting up our relationships. So I'm just going to delete them and show another way of setting up these. If I go back into my results table, what I can do is rather than use the numbers, I can use a lookup wizard. I want to look the field up and get the values from a table. Now this was the quiz ID, so I want to get it from there. I just want to take my quiz ID. You can take the other details if you need to. And finish. One thing you'll notice that I probably should have done is when I go through these, oh, don't want quizzes for this one. Let's go back. I want the users, user ID. I can sort them if I want to, not going to worry. And I can do my enable data integrity. That will save it. If I now go back into my relationships, because I ticked enable data integrity, it's already done that enforce referential, and I'm just going to do it on that one as well. So now I've got my database created. It's got, data in there, and what we can now do is look at, just typing in, filling in the data. Okay, the next little video will have a look at basically how to, once you've entered in some dummy data, how to export it as comma separated values, and then actually load that data actually straight back into your tables.